Hello everyone and welcome back to another SportStatMedia video. My name is Andrew and I will be your host today. And today we are going to be talking about the NFL Draft. Now this is one of the deepest classes that I feel like I've seen in a long time. Maybe in like the past 10 to 15 years. It's been very deep and filled with a lot of high quality prospects. So you saw a lot of guys that maybe could have gone in the first round that ended up falling to like the second, third, even the fifth round. But today we're going to be taking a look at the winners and losers that I have for the 2020 NFL Draft. So with that, let's go ahead and dive right into it. Starting off with our first loser, we have the Chicago Bears. Now overall, the Chicago Bears had a decent draft, but the main thing for me is the Cole Kmet pick at round 2 didn't really make a lot of sense for me. They could have gone with an interior offensive lineman or potentially pick Jalen Johnson, their 50th pick, a little bit earlier just to secure a spot. I think that was a great pick for them. The reason I didn't really like the Cole Kmet pick was because you already had 9 tight ends on the roster, and while not all those guys are going to be starters, you're going to start thinning down that roster soon. And adding Cole Kmet to that mix with the 10 tight ends you already have, you have Adam Shaheen, who you invested a draft pick in. He doesn't look very good right now. You signed an aging Jimmy Graham, and then you got rid of Trey Burton, who I believe Trey Burton is better than Jimmy Graham is. So that pick just didn't really fit into the Bears offense for me. I did like their Jalen Johnson pick. Their Travis Gibson pick out of Tulsa, that was an okay pick for me. I didn't really see a huge need at defensive end with Bilal Nichols and Akeem Hicks both on the roster as starting, but maybe that provides some good depth for them. I don't like the extra cornerback pick. I might have gone with a safety where that is. I might have picked a wide receiver earlier also instead of that tight end pick. Maybe you could have gone with, Chase Claypool and have a guy who can rotate in and out at tight end and wide receiver. But overall, they had an okay draft. Like both the depth offensive tackles at the end in the 7th. But overall, it was just kind of a confusing draft for me, and I didn't really like the first pick that they made. So I gave them a D+ here for that, and they are our first losers. Now moving on to our first winner, we have the Baltimore Ravens. Now I really like what the Baltimore Ravens did in this draft. I went ahead and gave them an A. In the first round with the pick 28, they picked Patrick Queen, linebacker at LSU. I really like this pick. Baltimore has been missing the presence of that middle roaming of the field linebacker since they lost CJ Mosley. And with this pick here, it kind of gives them that star linebacker that comes back and can kind of center the field and shrink it down a little bit so that it's tighter windows for the opposing offenses that they're facing. I also really like the J.K. Dobbins pick out of Ohio State. That was a very high quality pick for me. They picked him in like the late 2nd round, and I had late 1st, early 2nd round for him, and I think he's going to pair very well with Mark Ingram in that offense. I also really like the Justin Madubuike pick. That was a 3rd round pick. I think he could have gone in the late 1st and especially the early 2nd. I expect him to go in the early 2nd. So getting him in the 3rd round was tremendous value for him. He might start on the defensive line right away. Devin Duvernay, that was a nice pick too. Even though he's kind of limited in what he can do, he's mostly a slot receiver. He can kind of trade in and out with Willie Snead in that offense. They also got a 2nd linebacker, Malik Harrison, who is also very good. I like the Tyree Phillips pick. The Ben Breedson pick is good, but not a great pick, as well as Broderick James. I really liked the James Proche pick. That was a steal, in my opinion. Getting him in the 6th round, he could potentially, be a depth wide receiver for you. But you do have to look now, like the Ravens have a lot of wide receivers and might potentially need to get rid of some of them next season. They're all very quality, so we'll see how that plays out for them. Moving on to another loser, we stay in the NFC North with the Packers. I went ahead and gave them a D+. Starting off with the Jordan Love pick, I actually gave this a B. I like the idea of giving Rodgers a replacement for the future, but I wouldn't have done it so early. That's the reason I gave it a B here instead of an A. Jordan Love has a lot of potential, and I think he could be a good starting quarterback in this league, especially learning from a guy like Aaron Rodgers if he's willing to teach Jordan Love. Now that's the main problem here for me. You should have picked up some wide receiver, tight end help potentially in this first round for Rodgers, because you're going to try to make a run at it next season, and eventually Aaron Rodgers is going to start declining, and not having that tight end or wide receiver to pair with Devontae Adams and replace Jimmy Graham is really going to hurt you in the end. Also, the A.J. Dillon pick did not make any sense for me. When you have Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams both on the same team at running back, both high starter quality guys, why do you need to draft another running back in the second round? That pick just did not make any sense to me, and you could potentially have selected another wide receiver or a wide receiver. They didn't even attack that position in this draft. That was the main problem for me with their draft, was they did not even target that position. And the Joshua DeGarda pick, now he's a good player, but I would have personally gone with one of the other tight ends like Devin Asai from UCLA or someone like that who could have potentially helped you, but I think he was lower on my list of tight ends that were available at that point in the draft. I did like the pick of Kamal Martin from Minnesota. That does give you an inside linebacker to potentially help replace the loss of Blake Martinez with Christian Kirksey. Overall, their draft was just confusing to me, as you didn't get Rodgers any help, you drafted his replacement, and you made a confusing pick at running back, and you didn't pick the best tight end on the board. Now moving on to our next winner is the Giants. Now the Giants might not seem like a team that's a winner potentially in this scenario, but they did draft Andrew Thomas, who was one of the top rated tackles at number 4, so that was a very good pick here. I think that they could have maybe traded down if somebody was willing, but the news said that there weren't really any takers for the number 4 overall pick, so they stuck with there and drafted their guy Andrew Thomas. I think he'll be a great left tackle and a great replacement for Nate Solder. I really like the Xavier McKinney pick in the second round. I think that was great quality for where they drafted him. He's the highest rated safety on my board, and you get a starter day 1 to pair with Jabril Peppers. You also get your right tackle of the future in Matt Pearl in the 3rd round. Matt Pearl was very highly rated coming out of a smaller school in UConn, but he's definitely going to be a starter. I also like Darnay Holmes. That was a great pick out of UCLA. I think he can eventually develop into a starter. Also Shane Lemieux. That's a good pick. Potentially could be one of your starting guards if you move Kevin Zeitler into the center position, or potentially Will Hernandez to the center position. And it kind of gives you a little bit of flexibility up on that offensive line in case anybody gets injured over the next couple of years. So overall, the Giants really had a good draft, and I like what they did with their picks at their spots. Even if they kind of messed the first round up, you could have gone with Jedrick Willis, but overall Andrew Thomas is a good prospect, and they had a good draft here. Now moving on to our final loser in this draft, I do have the Oakland Raiders being the final loser. I didn't really like what they did here. I did like the pickup of Henry Ruggs out of Alabama, but you potentially could have gotten CeeDee Lamb, who was my top rated wide receiver at number 12, and you picked Darmaine Arnett, the cornerback out of Ohio State, at pick 19. You could have traded down potentially and got Darmaine Arnett and picked up some extra picks potentially in either the 2nd or 3rd round and been able to trade up for a better prospect. So that pick just didn't really make any sense to me. I also think he's a lot older and, potentially could be already developed into his full potential, whereas a person like AJ Terrell, if you had traded up for that cornerback, or maybe even Noah Igabone, who has a lot of potential, those guys could have given you a lot more flash than Darmaine Arnett did. I did give it a D+ because they did attack the cornerback position, but that pick just did not make any sense to me. I like the pick of Lynn Bowden Jr. He is a good prospect, but I didn't really see the need at running back or wide receiver when you already drafted Henry Ruggs, but they have a lot of speed on that team now, so look to them to try to compete with the Chiefs with that Legion of Zoom on the outside. Brian Edwards, a very good wide receiver that they stole in the 3rd round. He draws some comparisons to Michael Thomas with his catch-all ability. You saw that crazy catch last season when he just went over the defender and caught it. Tanner Muse, I would have personally chosen Kevon Wallace over Tanner Muse, but that's just them, and that's why I gave it a D+ there. John Simpson, that's an okay pick, but you don't really have a need at guard with Gabe Jackson and Rodney Hudson at center. That interior offensive line is really doing okay, so I didn't really see the need for that pick there. And Amik Robertson in the 4th round, very good pick. I went ahead and gave that an A. I really liked what they did there. I think he could have gone in the early 2nd, early 3rd round, but they stole him here in the 4th, and he could potentially be a starter day 1 for them. So overall, the Raiders, did okay, but I didn't really like some of their early picks in the 3rd and 4th round. Some of those picks were a little bit confusing to me, so they are losers here. Now moving on to our final winner, and that is going to be the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I gave the Dallas Cowboys a draft grade of an A+. I really like what they did here. They attacked their positions, and they also got value for them. So with pick 17, they picked CeeDee Lamb. Now at the time I was like, well, you don't necessarily need him, and Clavon Chason was on the board, but they ended up picking him, and he was my top rated wide receiver on the board. He can play outside or in the slot, so you have a lot of versatility with Michael Gallup, Amari Cooper, and CeeDee Lamb all in that offense. In the 2nd round, you got tremendous value in Trayvon Diggs, who could have gone in the late 1st, early 2nd round. Then you got Neville Gallimore, same thing, could have gone in the late 1st, early 2nd round, and potentially can be a starting defensive tackle for you and kind of bring some versatility to that team. Then you got Reggie Robinson, who I think was a lot higher than people really rated him, and I think he could potentially be a starting cornerback in this league. You traded up with the Philadelphia Eagles to get Tyler Biadasz, who can be a replacement for Travis Frederick, eventually learning from Joe Looney, and you also have Connor McGovern at that position. So you have a lot of versatility of that offensive line up front. And then finally, this was my steal of the draft, Bradley Ane, defensive end out of Utah. This was a very good pick for them, and they potentially stole a guy who could have gone in the early 2nd, late 3rd, in that kind of range, but he ended up making it all the way to the 5th round. I didn't like the pick of Ben DiNucci as much out of James Madison when you have Anthony Gordon on the board, who's kind of a higher rated quarterback, but overall a very good draft for the Cowboys. That's why I gave him an A+ here. Thank you guys so much for watching another episode of SportStatMedia. If you liked the video, go ahead and like it down below, and go ahead and subscribe to see more videos like this one. And if you didn't agree with something in this commentary, go ahead and comment your takes down below if you disagree. And that's all I have for you guys now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.